we are making palmiers, or little elephant ear cookies. So what we're starting with is some puff pastry dough that's been softened to about room temperature. You want to make sure it's pliable enough to roll out. Generously flour your puff dough, and even if you have a split in the dough, that's fine because we're going to be rolling it out anyways. And then start to roll. I like to start by just pressing down the dough just to get it started. And if it ever starts to stick on the counter, just reflour it. You want to roll this out to about a 12-inch by 18-inch rectangle. It doesn't have to be perfect. We are going to be trimming the sides to get it to the size that we want. So our dough is getting to about the size that we want. You can see that the seam came together as we continue to roll it out. And I like to use a ruler just to make sure I'm at about the size that I want. So that looks pretty close. So now what I want to do is just take my knife just to clean up the edges, just so we have nice clean lines here. So a pizza cutter or your knife works for this. Now what I like to do is just take my pastry brush and just brush off any excess flour. Okay, and now we have some melted butter. We're going to pretty generously brush this with melted butter. We need this so that the sugar and our other fillings will stick. So try to get all the edges. You want to make sure every little bit of this is covered in filling. Now we're going to sugar it with our terminato sugar, or our sugar in the raw. Any sort of coarse brown sugar works well for this. And we'll save the extra for topping. And then we've got some crushed toasted pistachio nuts. So to crush these, you actually just put them in a food processor or a mixer or blender of some sort, or in a Ziploc bag, and you can even smash them with a rolling pin. That works as well, or chop them up with a knife. But you want them fine enough so that they will roll up in this nicely without ripping the dough. So try and get a nice even layer. And then we've got some ground cardamom. And you can really mix up the spices that you put inside. You could put nutmeg, allspice, cloves. I've got some cinnamon here. Okay, and what I like to do is I actually like to just run my rolling pin over this again, just to kind of press the filling in, just so it doesn't all come out when we fold it. Perfect. And now the rolling part. This is the fun part. So you want to guess approximately where the middle of your dough is. And you want to fold this to about the middle of the dough. If it's not perfect, you can always move it afterwards. That looks good. So just kind of press that together. And then I like to take some beaten egg and just wipe right down the middle of the dough, just to give us a seal in the middle. Make sure you're not going to the top, because we're going to be pulling down the top of the dough after, and we don't want it to be fully sealed. And then take your dough again and squish that together. You can even give it another little roll if you want, not too aggressively. And then you're going to allow this to chill and then cut and bake. So we have our dough here that's slightly chilled in the fridge. Now I'm going to slice. So what you want to do is have a nice sharp knife, and I like to just trim off the end piece there so all your pieces are perfect and beautiful. And about a 1/4 inch thick slices are good. And you want to make sure your dough is not too cold or too warm because it won't slice properly. Okay, so I've sliced up all my palmiers, and now got a parchment-lined bake sheet ready. And you want to make sure you space these out enough because they will spread, and you want to make sure they get nice and brown when you bake them. So you can alternate just like that. And you can see now why we didn't seal the top, because we're spreading that out a little bit. So being very careful not to overcrowd your tray and being very gentle. You don't want to lose any fillings when you do this. Okay, so I've got my last palmier on my bake sheet now. And what you want to do is you just want to gently flatten these out a little bit. You want that because it's going to spread out nicer when it bakes. And you might have to press them together a little bit more, but the dough is pretty forgiving. And once you've done that, we're going to give them another sprinkle of sugar. And that's going to caramelize as the dough bakes. And these are ready to go in the oven now. Here are the finished palmiers. They're nice and golden brown, and they've flattened out a little bit. And you can see why they are often referred to as elephant ears. Visit ATCOBlueflamekitchen.com for more tips.